What it do, YouTube? It's your boy Tay, and today we got Ted McMillan, T Mac 6'4", 6'5", 220, big target. The pros I got for him: large catch radius, 6'5", like I said. He plays that big. He catches screens, changes direction. You know, the cons I said doesn't run real routes often. The only route he really runs is slants and go routes. So given that he runs a lot of slants, I come to him to like a T. Higgins or a Michael Thomas, just a big target. But I actually think that him being that big is kind of a detriment to his game. That just makes him not that true X receiver. But he does have some highlights. Does have some good speed. He ran I think a four. I want to say 4.5 at the combine. It's kind of iffy what he actually ran, but he is able to break away from the defenders when he's in space. Now when he's in the phone booth, that's a this is him catching the slant, taking it to the crib. But when he's in the phone booth, that's another subject, and we're definitely going to be going over that in this video as well. But a deep threat, of course, he can get better in the deep threat area. But I mean, last year he just had a terrible quarterback. Like when the ball was on target, he was pretty good, but it was a lot of times when the ball wasn't on target. But you can still see what a receiver does before the catch. But that was just a play with him just getting tackled the first time. Now, if you watch my last video, it's Travis Hunter and Trey Harris. Their run after the catch is very good. So and breaking away from that first tackle is very good as well. Now, Ted McMillan, as you can see here, breaking it down, he doesn't even try to impose his will at first. Like, he doesn't even try to get the player out the way first. He tries to just kind of step back and kind of avoid him, but he has to make the contact. He has to initiate the contact. He has to learn how to do that on the next level, because getting tackled first, a lot of the times, like he does, just isn't good. And while I wasn't a big fan of him, that's why he's my wide receiver 3 in this draft. But I mean, he's a very good receiver. If you looking at what he does before the catch, in terms of using his body to catch the ball, just snagging the ball out the air, being a big target for somebody, I think he'll be great, for the Panthers, a team like that, or a great wide receiver 2 next to CD, at 12 to the Cowboys. If you want him in a position like that, then I think he'll be great. Like I said, he kind of reminds me of T. Higgins, but if you want him to be that Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Malik Neighbors, even BTJ, like those top 5 to 10 receivers in the league, I don't think he can be that. Um, but like I said, T. Higgins was drafted in the second round, and looking back at his career now up to this point, I think teams would draft him in the first round. So I have a first round grade on Ted. As you can see, able to catch a deep pass over the receiver there. Very nice play. And it's just that Ted does everything solid. Now this is a deficiency in his game. He did this a few times. Now the corner did grab his arm. I don't know if y'all can see that. If you see the black right there, grabbing the white, the black hand grabbing the white. So he kind of had to put one hand up, but he does like to one hand long passes that are in front of him. And there's also another play that's coming up where he tried to one hand it. So just getting his fundamentals right, catching the ball with two hands. It's kind of like a quarterback. Like, you have to get your fundamentals right. Make sure your feet are straight. Here's the play right here. Tried to catch it with one hand and just dropped it where he could have just dragged his foot if he tried to catch it with two hands. You see what I'm saying? It was a trick play. Great play. He's wide open. And I know it's not right on his body, but I mean, the elite receivers catch that. See, I kind of slowed it down for y'all. So, like I was saying, like a quarterback, you have to make sure, your feet are good. You have to make sure your arm angle is good. You have to make sure your rotation is good. You have to make sure that you just do things as a quarterback to make a good throw. It's the same way as a receiver. You have to make sure, your feet are good and you have late hands, and, you just have to make sure that you're doing a lot of things when you're going against the DB, so you won't have a lot of tails to the DB so they can be on your route. You see what I'm saying? And even catching the ball, there's ways to catch the ball. Of course, everybody knows, catch the ball with two hands if you can. Don't try to make a spectacular catch if you don't need to. But here's just plays where he just gets tackled by the first player, and if he had more plays where, he got a lot of yards after the catch, I would be very big on him, like top 10 pick bid, like how he was earlier in the draft. And after watching it the first time, I still had a top 15 grade on Ted, but watching it for this video actually kind of just made me say he's a first rounder in general. I would actually take, I would if I'm the Cowboys at 12, I would look at Ted. Of course, I wouldn't. I'm not saying don't draft Ted if you're not the Panthers, or don't draft Ted if you're not the Pats, because I think a big X receiver, even though he may not be elite, I think just a big target for a young quarterback is very crucial and very much needed if you was to draft him. I also think an offensive line is. So me personally, I think the Pats should go O line at 4. But if you're the Panthers, or if you're at 12, the Cowboys, don't. I'm not saying don't look at Ted, but also look at, a Trey Harris or a Matthew Golden or a Luther Burden, if you think they're in that same tier as Ted, because I do. I don't, maybe not Luther Burden, but a Trey Harris, Matthew Golden from Texas, I think are in the same tier as Ted, because they do things after the catch that Ted doesn't. Now, if you want a big target, like I said, then Ted's your guy, But if you want a guy that, like I said, like a Jamar Chase or Malik Neighbors, or just those guys that can run, even JJ and CD, just those guys that can get a lot of yards out of the catch. I think Ted can have a very productive season for, let's just say, if he gets drafted to the Pats, because he'll be that main receiver. I know they just signed Stephon Diggs, but he's not going to start week 1, I don't think, coming back from that injury. So if Ted gets, 120, 130 targets, a lot of targets, I think he can have a really good season. Now, can he have a season like Brian Thomas Jr., who had, less than 90 catches and almost 1,300 yards? I'm not sure about that. But I think at 5, if you want to pair him up with BTJ, that would be a scary duo. You see what I'm saying? So that's kind of just how I look at T Mac. I don't think he's that true number one that can be your number one for 10 years. But can he get better? Absolutely. But just going off of his college film, he's good, but I wouldn't say he's great. If he was in last year's draft, I'll probably have him top 5. I'll probably have Neighbors. Last year I had Neighbors 1, BTJ 2, MHJ 3, and I think I had Rome 4. I think I would put him over Rome just because of his size, but even then, Rome was a really good route runner and, really big as well. So it'll probably be, a toss up between him and Rome from last year, just to show you where he stacks up from last year's class. This is a weaker wide receiver class this year, but I still think it's a really good class, and I still think it has some potential for 4 or 5 of these guys to really pop if they go to the right situation. Like, I'm not saying Ted can't be a 1. I keep saying Panthers because they have Xavier Legette from last year, but I still think just adding somebody like a Ted, more young talent. They have Adam Thielen there, but just adding someone like a Ted would be very good for them. And yeah, that's my T Mac breakdown. I have a first round grade on him. I wouldn't pick him top 15 personally, but I can definitely see him going top 15. And stay tuned for next video, to see who my wide receiver 4 in this class is. It might surprise some people. Actually, my 4 and 5 might surprise some people. So far, we got Travis Hunter, Trey Harris, and T Mac. So stay tuned to see who's my wide receiver 4. Make sure to follow me on all socials, like, comment, subscribe, and we out.